With the looming threat of U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs, a Buy Canadian movement has picked up across the country. You may have noticed it when you go into grocery stores or supply shops, a tag that tells you if the product you're about to pick up is made in Canada. Retail expert Bruce Winder joins us now to discuss this movement, its pros and some possible cons. Thanks for being here, Bruce.
Thanks for having me on the program.
So this has been going on for over a month now, and it benefits Canadian businesses. Does it benefit consumers?
I think it benefits consumers perhaps directly and indirectly. Directly, in some cases, Canadian products have become a little cheaper now than American products because of the counter duties that the Canadian government has put on and the weakening Canadian dollar. So, in some ways, it benefits consumers. It benefits consumers indirectly by keeping cash in Canada and also, employing Canadians, keeping employed Canadians employed at the companies that we're buying these products from.
Are there certain things that perhaps a grocery store we can only get in from the States, for example, avocados or things like that, or is everything now available here in Canada?
No, there's some things that are from the United States. Some companies I know, like Loblaw, have looked to Mexico too, or South America in lieu of that, to get certain things. But I think a fair amount of products can be substituted outside of the, fresh fruit and vegetables categories. A fair amount of products can be made in Canada, so it sounds like they're finding ways to make it happen.
Would this create less choice at all for the consumer?
Yeah, that's one of the downsides is you may have a little less choice, right? There might be a little less brands to choose from, but I think Canadians are okay with that. I think Canadians are willing to give up a little bit of brand variety in order to back the cause.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this tariff war has rubbed a lot of Canadians the wrong way. I've talked to some people who say if they see a product is made in America, they refuse to buy it. But could that mentality impact Canada in a way?
Yeah, we have to be a little bit careful. I mean, we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. There is a lot of American subsidiaries that employ Canadians up here. So, we have to be careful we don't boycott American companies completely. And, we're also trying to mend this relationship too, right? So we also want to keep the door open. We don't want to burn any bridges with our friends from America either.
Yeah, so you mean that a lot of these companies might have Canadian employees, so they would want to stay afloat for that reason, keep some jobs going, right? So,
Yeah,
well,
for
this
sure.
brings me to my next question. We've been talking about Hudson's Bay liquidating for the past few weeks. Could a Buy Canadian movement stop us from seeing Canadian businesses close down in the future?
Well, I think that some of the forces that are in effect, particularly if you look at Hudson's Bay situation, they had some major, major, major headwinds to the point where I don't think a Buy Canadian movement would have saved them. Having said that, there are companies that are suffering a little bit. They've had a hard time since the pandemic, and a Buy Canadian movement may help them make money at least in the short term. The question is, how long will this last, right? Will it last as long as the tariffs? Will this sort of sputter out before we get resolution to the tariff issue? I really don't know.
Well, I want to stay on Hudson's Bay a little bit longer because an Ontario judge recently rejected the Hudson's Bay restructuring proposal on Saturday, saying it was neither necessary nor appropriate. What do you think? Why do you think that is? And where does this leave the company now?
Yeah, I think that the judge, I think that the three major lenders were trying to take control of the process and give themselves a lot of the say in terms of who would buy Hudson's Bay if they find a buyer and meeting budgets. And I think the judge just said, look, you know what? You don't really need to do that. I reject this agreement. A lot of what you're looking for is inherently built into the CCAA process and the monitoring process of the liquidation. Now, where this goes for the Bay, I'm not sure. Technically, the company could file a receivership claim, which might not change things that much, but we're going to have to see sort of how the lenders react this week. The landlords and other constituents weren't really in favor of this agreement because they felt that the three lenders had too much control in the process.
Elaborate a bit more on the receivership claim. How might that benefit the company?
Yeah, receivership is something, where start selling off assets, even though the company may or may not be a going concern. So, this is where, the lenders would put forth a proposal to say, okay, we need to start selling things in the store and generating money. Maybe they take inventory back or they send it to liquidators in other countries. I'm not sure if that's going to happen. I'm not sure if the judge would allow that to happen too, but it's kind of a bit of a murky area right now over the next few weeks in terms of what happens now that the agreement was rejected by the judge.
Certainly a fast moving situation. Bruce, we appreciate your time as always. That's retail expert and analyst Bruce Winder.
Thank you.